Welcome to everyone to our EDGEy Conversations conversation today. We're delighted to have Gurbeen Bhasin with us. Gurbeen is an amazing person. She was project manager for Envisioning Human Rights, producer and president of Meow Films. A story for another time, but I'm very curious. And 20 years founder and executive director of the Aangen Community Center. And Gurbeen, when I had a look at the Aangen Community Center, I was reminded of a book that was very formative for me by Parker Palmer. He talked about manifold engagement in the process of moral social formation. And manifold engagement are those daily activities that often technology doesn't require us to do anymore, but the very things of growing food, of harvesting food, of preparing and serving food, and of cleaning up after. That these are the activities, right, that actually not only benefit us in the doing of them, but they actually are the means of moral social formation. So I suspect that more is going on in the work of the Aangen Community Center than just raising funds for marginalized peoples in those three things of farming and catering and of cleaning services. So we're delighted to have you with us, and we'd love to hear that story.
Thank you so much, Rob, for that wonderful introduction. You are absolutely right. There is so much going on underneath it. And to connect the pieces, what I want to say is we're very much committed to understanding the needs of the community as they arise and to be able to respond to those needs in the moment. And that is particularly important as a social enterprise, and which is why I really, really wanted to hold solid to that foundation of being a social enterprise. So let me start a little bit from the beginning, and then we can, sort of unfold the story layer by layer, if you will. So the thought of Aangen came to me, or the idea of a social enterprise really, but didn't have a name or an identity at that point in time. In graduate school, I was doing my second master's at the University of Michigan in social policy and evaluation. So it was under the MSW umbrella, but it was macro level work. And it occurred to me during that time, my internship was at the Michigan Department of Social Services, and I was the person who was holding the purse strings to give out the grants. And I realized at that point in time, and I won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but what became incredibly apparent was that the community was not able to come up with their own ideas and to really listen to the voice of the people because they were quite attached to funding, So it was really the funder who somehow determined what the community needed without really understanding maybe the needs of each particular community. You see, they may have understood the grander scope, which I think is fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily apply to, the grassroots level. So I went to my supervisor, Cheryl, at the time, who remains a very, very good friend. And I said to her, well, why can't we just per capita, divide the money? Like, we know Detroit is a hot spot. They need a lot of support. We know there's other areas that need different kinds of support, and some areas that are rather affluent rather. So why can't we divide the money and let people determine what it is that their community needs? So she said to me, well, that's not really how it works, but go ahead and do a focus group and see what people have to say about that. And right then and there, Rob, I have to say, within that focus group was where my aha moment happened. One social worker, frontline staff said to me, we are given the job to empower the client who's sitting in front of us, right? So we're supposed to make that client independent and self-sufficient. And yet, if we don't get the grant that we've applied for to the state, I'm going to be in the client seat. So how does that make any sense? And I was like, wow, like the heavens parted and I got great insight in that one moment. And it occurred to me that the system was really dichotomous. And so fast forward, a little bit, it made me realize that we had to create a system that was not reliant on anything outside of itself. It had to be self-sufficient from the ground up. We cannot expect our clients and the people that we are serving to be self-sufficient if we ourselves cannot be self-sufficient. So what does that look like? And so we fast forward to now, which is 20 years. And let me tell you, there was many, many years of trials and tribulations here, right? Lots of figuring things out on the go and figuring things out like in the moment, so to speak. But what really occurred to me was people are going to need food, right? Like basic human need. There's food, right? We have Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The first and foremost is safety and housing and a roof over one's head. And then you come, food is right in there. And then you keep going up to self-actualization. So as a person who had been trained in, client-centered wraparound services, it was always client-driven. So what is the need of the person? The person who we're serving actually is the expert in their own lives, right? So having that knowledge, when people would come to Aangen, the question was, so where are you at? What's going on? Let's talk about it. What do you need? Because they will always tell you, people will know what their needs are in their lives. And then how do we go about meeting them? So the freedom of having 3 lines of business, which gives us our income, as you mentioned, with farm products, cleaning and catering, those afford us the freedom to meet everybody where they're at. And the beautiful thing of the evolution is what happened really organically at Aangen, like things do, was that once we started into the farm products and we were able to serve more people, we were able to start housing people, So I started to develop relationships, very close relationships with housing community. Once we got into the housing community, and literally it was just to find housing, but in turn, they had needs. So they would say, like, for instance, my very favorite memory is about 8 years ago when I had placed a woman who was the survivor of the worst domestic violence I had ever seen into an apartment. 2 weeks later, the manager, who's now a director, called me and she said, hey, listen, so my office cleaner has just up and left. He's AWOL. I don't know what to do. And we both went, oh, wow. Okay. So we got the same idea at the same time. So the woman that we had placed there had cleaning experience in her background, before, and was actually looking for a job, but was very, very marginalized and needed a specific job in a specific way, not to get into too many details, but we were able to figure it out together. So we started off with the tiniest little job where she went to clean her office, the staff office, once a week, for a few hours. And that was enough for her to pay her RGI rent, right? Which was rent geared to income. She literally had no income at that point. And then it became like, oh, hey, we've got this unit for another client. Oh, hey, we've got another unit, and so on. It started to grow. And then the same manager, who's also become a very good friend now, called me and said, I have a gentleman who's going to be evicted and he needs a job. Can you hire him as a cleaner? And I said, oh, I would love to. I said, will you be able to maybe give me some other jobs for him so we can continue? So it became very clear that employment was an absolute critical factor to empowering people who had many barriers to employment and to productivity and self-sufficiency. So it developed, it became a thing before I knew it became a thing, really, honestly. and it grew, and we called it the Chance for Change program. right? So we started to hire people as we got more and more jobs from the housing agency specifically to make sure that their housing was maintained, but also to give additional supports. So the wraparound services, like we work with lots of food banks, we work with therapists, we work with, health centers like CHCs, right? Community health centers and things like that. So we make sure that everyone's needs are met. We work with legal teams like the Barbara Schleifer Clinic and the Parkdale Legal Clinic, to make sure that people's needs are being met. And so that has evolved in our social enterprise. And we are now the proud employees of over 100 people, you see. So the cleaning has evolved, the catering has evolved. We have, in the last 2 years, made over 500,000 meals for homeless shelters. So that's what we've been doing with our food program. And you'll be pleased to know that we're actually evolving that program because now, I have a mom who's aging. A lot of us in our cohort have aging parents, right? So we know that people who are trying to stay at home, like my father-in-law is 92 years old. He, God bless him, has been living alone since mom passed away about 5 years ago, but he's been living alone. We want him to continue to live alone, but we want him to be healthy and happy. So what can we do to help, again, another vulnerable population by continuing to employ another vulnerable population, and make things work well? So we've launched just recently into a dehydration food service program. So we're creating healthy meals that you can just open up a pouch and pour hot water, and there you go, voila, you've got the healthiest oatmeal you've ever had, and delicious, I should say, and other soups and stews and things like that. So we're working on that program to make sure that we can feed people who may not be able to cook for themselves, who may not be able to have the capacity to to go shopping or whatever the case might be. So we're partnering with, again, food banks and other community centers to make sure that we are hitting the mark. Like, this is what we're planning to do. We're working with food rescue, so significant amounts of food which would have ended up in the landfill now can be utilized to create nutritious, healthy, fantastic meals for people who need them. So that is another need has come up in the community, and especially through COVID, we saw this, right? We saw what was going on. We really observed people who were marginalized becoming even more marginalized. So what can we do to respond to that need, and how do we support people to make sure that there's food on? We worked extensively with the grocers that buy our farm products and the restaurants that we work with to say, hey guys, people need food. So what can we do to make sure that you've got enough of our farm products, eggs, butter, honey, maple, etc., and keep getting them out to to the people that need them. And an extension of that, an extension of our food service, is the dehydration program. We're calling it All Dried Up for now, but
I love it.
we got to have a sense of humor, right? But that's the plan. The plan is continuing to serve the community as the needs come up without the shackles of funding. And although we do appreciate people who get funding and they do the work, that needs to get done, for us, the freedom with which to be able to respond to community needs must come from self-generated funding, right? So it's pretty profound, and we're very excited to grow, and we're also very excited to continue to hire people who need the support that they won't necessarily get from other employers. We have a situation where we have, like, people who have had, addiction issues or mental health issues or anxiety. I mean, that's a big one these days. Like, we get a lot of it. I'm anxious, I'm depressed. I have fear. How do we work through that? How do we create a supportive employment program where people can express their barriers without it being punitive, in any way, without it being judgmental or harsh. So that is part of the plan of our, like growing our chance for change. I always say Aangen is a land of misfit toys. I really say that because it's true.
Yeah. Mm.
It really is. We are a collection of people that somehow found each other, and we're able to work together, and we're able to support each other. And now, just in the last year, Rob, we were very fortunate enough to partner with another housing agency that is a very, very solid believer in the supportive employment program. And we've taken on 70 of their staff as well, to support them in getting through, to feel productive, and to have income supplement, even though a vast majority may be on ODSP or OW or things like that. So that's part of our plan, is to continue to serve the community, and be aware of the needs as they arise, and offer our services to like-minded businesses and organizations within the sector, and also within the private sector, who are like, hey, we want to be part of the solution. That's our plan.
Wow. Wow. What a story. At Edge, we like to say God's up to something, and it's clear, to at least in the language we would use, that is true in the work that's happening with you. I love that phrase, that people are the experts on their own lives. And because, it puts you into that place of curiosity then. What can we learn from them about them? And tell me a little bit about who are the people that come to you, without, compromising or co-opting people's stories, but who are these people that end up connecting with the Aangen Center?
Thank you for asking that question, because it's a really important one. And so I'll give you the example of that one particular woman who was the survivor of domestic violence. She came to us as a referral from a community health center. So the community health centers have funding to give, let's say, 8 or a maximum of 12 sessions of therapy, right? That's what their funding limits them to. They got to a place where this particular woman had already been extended well beyond the funding regulations, but they knew that she was going to need constant care. And that was about just about 10 years ago, in fact. And so when I got the referral, I realized that they picked Aangen because we have now become the safety net under the safety net, if you know what I mean. So the safety net of society has, the medical and professional support, but they're also restricted. So when they picked us, it was because we are not restricted. I'm still working with this woman. She's been our first employee outside of me, right?
Wow.
Although I was a volunteer for the first 14 years, really and truly. And like you talked about, I did do other contracts where I sort of sold my brain so I could continue to survive and keep Aangen thriving. For the first 14 years, I was literally a volunteer. And so she was paid from Aangen before I was at that point in time, but it's the same woman that I'm working with. So for the last 8 years, 10 years, I've been working with her. 2 years, we worked to a place where we could actually get her to a place where she was safely housed, etc. So last 8 years, she has maintained her housing. She has maintained her employment. She's now actually doing some work to launch her own business. These are like amazing things that we've been able to accomplish because we haven't had the limitations, to be able to say, oh, sorry, we can no longer work with you. Here you go. You're off on your own. So us being the safety net under the safety net has actually given us the position where other agencies can refer to us.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Um, you talked about like there's kind of a theme emerging for me that relates to, we talk about a fourth bottom line sometimes, that social, environmental, the financial sustainability, and then spiritual, kind of a spiritual bottom line. And if there was a kind of a very open way of defining that spirituality, it would be connection. And you just over and over this capacity to connect with the individual as they arrive, but also to make connections between communities. And I think that's why people are coming to you, because you're able to kind of connect the things to a whole, as opposed to be kind of driven by another mandate. Like that office cleaner, right? You made that connection right away. We've got this person, they've got cleaning experience, and this person's cleaner has left them that's connect. Tell me how does that function? Where does that come from in this work?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to answer it by giving you another example, because I think what has happened over the years is examples like the one that I'm about to give you and the office cleaner one have really built my faith. They've built my faith in us being able to respond to the need. We're committed to responding to need. So what does that look like? That looks like being flexible, being open, being willing to say yes when you don't even know how you're going to do it, So, like I said, the woman who started with the office cleaning, so other managers started to hear about our services, you see, within the housing sector. And then there was a director who came up to me and said, hey, listen, we have this multi-use space. And this was like in 2017 or 2016, I can't quite remember, but they wanted to convert the multi-use space where the city actually owned the space, and they would serve meals to the drop-in, the women that would come to the drop-in center. But at night, the space was empty, really. So they needed to, or they thought they should be making a space where women can come in and sleep, So the director took me to the facility and gave me a tour and said, okay, what do you think? So if we move all of these tables aside and the chairs aside, do you think we could fit cots? And literally her and I went around, we measured things, we, it just got creative, So lo and behold, they got the funding that they applied for to create the model, of changing this multi-use space to, to accommodate 35 beds. So 35 women who would otherwise be out on the street, cold at night, could have a place to lay down their head. So I went about hiring people, because it was a 7-day-a-week, twice a day, shift where you'd come in and set up the beds, and then eventually you tear down the beds and then set up for the meals. So we started to do this, and in earnest, we worked together. We're like, oh gosh, what do we do about bed bugs, or what do we do with situations as they come up? Because, things will come up. And so we dealt with that, and we went along for about a year. I'm going to say we developed a fantastic working relationship. So many women were able to stay warm at night, and it was just so enriching, and fulfilling. And then in January 2018, the same director calls me and says, hey, I hear you do something with food. And I was like, oh, sure. We do a lot with food. Like, we've got farm products. We have a little cafe that we run in the park. Like, what do you need? Just what's going on? And so in that moment, like, she said to me, she goes, look, we've had to open these emergency shelters. They're called respites, because people are freezing out on the streets. And so we need food. And so that's all I heard was, we need food. We have hungry people. The second part of the sentence is kind of what I missed, but she said she needed 300 breakfast, 300 lunch, 300 dinner. Wow. and so she's like, well, can you help me? And all I heard is people are hungry. And that was it. That was all I needed. And I was like, yes, we can do this. So I have no idea. I have no idea how we did it, but within maybe in 5 days, less than a week, I had to pull together a team of people who knew how to cook that kind of food. And then pull together the resources like, farmers and the Ontario Food Terminal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And last but not least, I needed a kitchen. I had no idea.
A detail, yeah.
So small detail, and never mind chafing dishes, never mind the pots and the pans that we need. I mean, we had no idea. And Rob, that's where the leap of faith comes in, where you say, okay, I'm going to find a way to make this happen. People are in need and we need to feed them. And that's all we know. And that we've got to make it work. That's it. There was no option for failure. There was no option for second guessing. There was no option for how are we going to do it? We're just going to do it was the attitude. And we're going to make it happen because that's what the community needs. And so that was just about 2 years ago, like I said, January 2018, it's almost 3 years. Wow. So, and we've made well over 500,000 meals at this point. We have hired so many people to do this work, and the same people that had started off with cleaners for us, who had some food experience, got to work in the kitchen, and then we hired new people. So we grew, we exploded as a team, and it was just incredible to see what the universe kept presenting to us. It just kept presenting to us, like, these are the things that are needed. Like I said, the seniors thing, it's something we've been talking about, like, how do we do that? How do we get healthy food to people? How do we make it viable? How do we make it realistic without becoming the next Meals on Wheels? Because we're not about that. We're not about replicating something that's already there. We're about augmenting, and we are a B2B. We work business to business. So when it's like-minded business to like-minded business, and we can get a much larger distribution of our product or our service, that's where it makes more sense, because that helps us employ more people,
Yeah.
And reach more people, and that's what makes it
scaling, more impact, right? There's some, it just seems to me, some real gems in what you just shared around, like, leadership. People are hungry. We're going to do this. How? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't even have a kitchen. We're going to do this. But it's the power of saying yes, right? And you use the word yes a lot. I notice it because sometimes we hear so many no's. It drives us crazy. The power of yes and what becomes possible when you say it, even though you can't see necessarily the way to go. When you were describing the support, like the holistic nature of the support, right? Someone needs a job, but they may need some accommodations around how they do that job, and mental health issues and addiction and so on, and your willingness to do that. I started to realize, well, not just marginalized people would want an employer that can provide this, right? You're really describing a way of doing business that just allows us to be more human in the way that we do it. Do you ever wonder whether, and I'm a little hesitant to even kind of raise this, but because it feels like it might distract from the focusing on the need of the person as they describe it, as from their expert point of view. But do you ever see this as kind of the horizon of a new way for our culture to function?
Absolutely, Rob. The answer is yes, and I know that's my favorite word, but I am going to use it. The reality is, the world is ready for a new model. The world is ready. I mean, COVID, if anything, it has shown us we can work in more humane ways. We can work from home. We can take care of our kids. We can support them as they need to be supported. We can take care of our families. Like, I love being on a Zoom call where a kid just runs up from the background, or a dog or a cat will just jump into somebody's lap. That's who we are. We are not these robots that go to work for 8 hours a day and pretend that we're, you know, in a box. Like, that just makes no sense to me. And I have to tell you, like, right from the beginning of Aangen, we have a work day that's from 10 to 4. That's it. No more, no less. 10 to 4. Because I believe fundamentally you can get as much done in 6 hours if you really apply yourself as you can in 8 hours. And you get those 2 extra hours to be with your family and be with your friends. And I always joke about this and say, this is my work family. Like, we are family at our workplace. We are a family. We lean into each other. I have cried at my management meetings, you know, because things have happened that either have been so moving and inspiring that, we're all in tears, or there's something that actually is personally happening, and I have to just share the pain in my soul. And that's the reality. We are humans first, you know. We are people on a journey first. We're not, machines that are just a function. So I believe the world is ready for a new model. I believe the world is ready for new business ways of doing things. Yes, is social enterprise a business? You bet your bottom dollar it's a business. It has to be a business because we need to be able to function within the reality, which is our societal construct. Do we need to do it in a way that's punitive or harsh or difficult or greed mindset rather than need mindset, if you know what I mean? No, we don't have to follow those principles because those principles are not working. They're not working. And we know that, we see that. And you talked about the fourth bottom line. Absolutely 100%. We have to pay attention. You know, you look at Mother Earth, and Mother Earth is crying for our kindness, really, if you know what I mean. So yeah. Our connectivity, not just to each other as humans, but to our animals, to our planet, that's where our own connectivity needs to resonate beyond work. So if we look at the principles that Aangen is based on, it's based on need, not greed, right? Greed has damaged life on so many levels and has made us divisive rather than, being able to harmonize and work with each other. So how do we go beyond that? The way we go beyond that is to talk about our similarities. That is why I often speak about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because your needs, Rob, you're a white man talking to a woman of color. We have very different backgrounds, but guess what? Your need for shelter, safety, food, all of those is exactly the same as mine. So we have a lot more similarities than we have differences. And so we need to focus on that. We need to focus on a model, that actually supports our well-being globally. Not only is the work that we're doing so important in Toronto, we're very deeply invested in some major food security work in Nigeria. We have in partnership with Father Charles, who has done the most incredible work in Nigeria, we have bought large amount of farmland, and we've invested in irrigation systems. We're now embarking on working with the Japanese embassy and a few other partners to buy like tractors and things like that. We're doing this on our own. We're not getting funding from the IMF or the World Bank or anything. We don't want it. Thank you very much. We're going to figure out how to solve famine and hunger without that kind of support, because we know what the people need and we're working on fulfilling those needs. There's farmers who know how to farm the land, who just need the support to make it happen. And we will do it. This is our second season, our second crop. And so not only am I working on writing the model for Aangen, which is a social enterprise, and how that has created the community and the support within the community that we've needed to thrive, which I think is, again, something that can be applied globally. But we're also writing the model for Chance for Change, which is our employment model. How do we work together to create employment where otherwise it wouldn't have happened? And then last but not least, how do we deal with hunger? How do we eradicate famine? Oh.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my computer just glitched out for a moment. I'm so sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I didn't actually see anything. It just on your screen, so we're all good.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
About that. Those are the three models. You know, there's so much that can be done within those models that can change how we operate as humankind, as global thinkers, you know, and we all have the same needs, and that's what we need to focus on.
You do my heart good today, Gurbeen. Just such energy and passion and vision and leadership is a very hopeful thing for me. I am grateful for your clarity around the importance of really what is a for-profit business model for real empowerment. And I know that, like in my context in the church, often people are suspicious of for-profit structures. You're very clear. Greed is an issue, but charity can also be an issue, because charity does not deconstruct the power differential, right? But if if you can empower someone through an enterprise, then they are free to address their needs as they see them. And just your clarity, I'm really grateful for that. And I hope you continue to share that message. Sometimes the structures that people like me think are needed are in the way, and we need to just give the people what they need, the tools. Yeah.
Right. And Rob, thank you for that. I think it's really important to note that we are registered as a not-for-profit, because nobody is an owner, right?
Right.
There's no shares.
Yes.
Right. So what happens is all the profit that we do make from our enterprises go right back into investing in our community and investing in the things that we need. Right. So for instance, we want to launch the dehydration project. Great. What do we need for that, and how do we build the capacity? And that's one reason I'm very, very excited about working with partners like yourselves, because you understand what it would take to scale a project like that. You understand what it would take to build, you know, the capacity, you know, to serve more people. So yes, you're absolutely right, that more charitable organizations isn't necessarily where we need to be.
Right.
More forward-thinking organizations like social enterprises, and really well-structured, clear social enterprises, not necessarily quote unquote funded social enterprise, because that's still funding a charitable body to try to do something that's a little bit different. I understand the need for it. I don't espouse it, you know, I don't espouse it. I do believe that you have to figure out what the community needs. And if you have to sacrifice your paycheck, like I did for 14 years to figure it out, well, you know what? That's the price of freedom.
Wow.
That's the price. You got to pay the price.
This leads to what I will commit to as a last question for this recording anyway. the commitment you've described is extraordinary, and the joy is also quite clear as you tell the story. What's your why, Gurbeen? What drew you into this place that you're in now, this work?
That's a great question. So I'm going to share something a little personal on that note, because the why is really personal. Um, I was diagnosed with lupus at the age of 32. And it was a fantastic teacher. It was the biggest wake up call. And my doctor was so great. So at that point in time of my life, I was a political consultant. So I did a lot of work in making politicians look really good. That was my training, right? Yeah. Policy evaluation, all that good stuff. And I did very, very well working in the Clinton years in the US. As you know, I went to University of Michigan. Well, my bag was packed at the door and I was out like 8 days of the week. I was just gone all the time. I was very, very busy. And that lifestyle led to some serious illness because I was pushing myself, at the ripe old age of like 28, 29, 30, like beyond capacity. So great. So my body just shut down and said, no, thank you. Well, the beauty that my physician, who's also become a very good friend, the beauty that he showed me in it was, hey, listen, you've had a life before lupus, you're going to have a life after lupus. The quality of that life is up to you. You're going to have to figure it out and forget about the career that you've built for yourself that you think is everything right now, because it's going to kill you. I won't even give you 3 months, forget 6 months, just it's going to kill you. So figure out what it is that you love,
Hmm. Wow.
The only thing that I can tell you that I love is showing up as love in the world. And that means that you show up in however is needed, whether that is to feed people, whether that is to employ people, whether that is to take someone to their eye surgery and sit with them as they heal and talk about their concerns. Like, what does that look like? Taking a single mom with her kids to the lawyer so we can get her, safe. And I mean, what does that look like on a daily basis? So the why to me was, I'm going to live. I'm going to choose to live, and I'm going to choose to be love every day.
Thank you so much for entrusting that personal story to me and to all those who will listen to this story. I'm so grateful for the chance to have met you today, Gurbeen. It's totally making my day, and grateful for the work that you're doing for all of those involved, and indeed for a vision for the earth and for us as human society. It's really encouraging, and rich blessings as you continue that work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. It's been a real pleasure, and I really look forward to working with you and lots of other like-minded, people that might be viewing this, or just to be able to share these ideas and really connect. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said we're really connecting, and that's the beauty of it.
Thank you.